The gates of the De Luca estate opened slowly. Emma Brooks tightened her grip on the old leather suitcase beside her. The mansion beyond the gates looked less like a home and more like a palace. 5 stories. White marble walls. Towering columns. Perfectly trimmed gardens. Luxury cars worth millions lined the circular driveway. She swallowed hard. There was no way someone like her belonged here. Emma glanced down at the wrinkled piece of paper folded inside her hand. Position: full-time live-in nanny. Employer: Alessandro De Luca. Every person in New York knew that name. Some called him a billionaire. Others called him a businessman. Most simply called him something far more dangerous: the Mafia king. Emma almost turned around. She had no experience working inside billionaire homes. She certainly had no experience working for the most feared man in the city. But she needed the job. Desperately. 3 months earlier, her mother had died after a long battle with cancer. The hospital bills had consumed every dollar Emma had saved. Then came the rent. Then the debt collectors. Now, all she owned fit inside one worn-out suitcase. Walking away wasn't an option. A black luxury SUV rolled past her and disappeared into the underground garage. 2 armed security guards stepped forward. One scanned her invitation. The other searched her suitcase. Not because they suspected her. Because everyone was searched. This way. Emma nodded quietly. Her heart pounded harder with every step. Inside, the mansion was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings painted by hand. Italian marble stretched in every direction. Golden light reflected across polished floors. Expensive paintings covered the walls. It didn't feel like a house. It felt like a museum. Or a kingdom. A tall woman in a navy business suit approached her. "I'm Sophia." She didn't smile. "I'm Mr. De Luca's estate manager." Emma immediately stood straighter. "Welcome." Another pause. "There are rules." Emma nodded. "I understand. No talking to guests. No entering the West Wing. No photographs. No social media. No discussing anything you see inside this estate." Emma nodded after every sentence. Sophia continued. "And one final rule." Her expression became serious. "You never disturb Mr. De Luca unless he asks for you personally." Emma had expected something like that. Powerful men usually wanted distance. "I understand." "Good." Sophia handed her a small electronic key. "The child's name is Lily." Emma blinked. Child? For some reason, she hadn't imagined Alessandro De Luca having children. "She's 6 years old." Emma smiled softly. "I've always loved children." For the first time, Sophia almost smiled. "You'll need that." 10 minutes later, Emma stood outside a pink bedroom. She knocked gently. No answer. She pushed the door open. The room looked untouched. Hundreds of toys, books, stuffed animals. But nobody was there. A tiny voice suddenly came from underneath the bed. "Go away." Emma knelt down. A pair of frightened blue eyes looked back at her. "Hi." Silence. "My name is Emma." "Nothing. I brought cookies." A tiny face slowly appeared. "You did." Emma smiled. "I wasn't sure if chocolate or peanut butter was better. So, I brought both." A few seconds later, a little girl crawled out. Messy blonde hair. Oversized pajamas. Tiny hands clutching a stuffed rabbit. "You don't look scary." Emma laughed. "I've been told many things, but scary isn't usually one of them." Lily giggled. The sound echoed through the enormous room. It was the first real laugh the mansion had heard in weeks. Emma didn't know that, but someone else did. Standing outside the partially open door, Alessandro De Luca watched silently. At 35 years old, Alessandro ruled an empire. Luxury hotels, shipping companies, investment firms, nightclubs, casinos, and, behind every legal business, an underground network powerful enough to terrify governments. Men feared him. Politicians respected him. Enemies disappeared. Yet nothing frightened Alessandro more than one thing: watching his daughter stop smiling after her mother's death. For nearly 2 years, every nanny had failed. Some were too strict. Some only wanted the paycheck. Some treated Lily like another responsibility. None of them stayed longer than 2 weeks. Alessandro had stopped expecting miracles. Then he heard laughter. Real laughter. Coming from Lily's room. He quietly stepped closer. Inside, Emma sat cross-legged on the carpet wearing a ridiculous paper crown. Lily wore another. The two of them were pretending to host a royalty party using plastic cups. Emma intentionally poured invisible tea into the wrong cup. Lily burst into laughter. No, the princess always drinks first. Emma gasped dramatically. I've broken royal law. You have. Oh no. I suppose they'll send me to princess jail. Lily laughed even harder. Alessandro couldn't remember the last time he'd heard that sound. For several long moments, he simply stood there, watching. Then Marco appeared beside him. The meeting starts in 5 minutes. Alessandro never looked away. Cancel it. Marco blinked. It was a meeting worth nearly $50 million. Sir, I said cancel it. Marco immediately nodded. Later that afternoon, Emma walked carefully through the mansion carrying a tray of coffee. She wasn't supposed to. One of the maids had twisted her ankle. Emma had volunteered to help. Simple enough. Carry coffee. Leave. Go back upstairs. Unfortunately, life had never been simple around Emma. As she turned the corner, someone stepped directly into her path. She gasped. The tray slipped. Hot coffee splashed everywhere. Across an expensive gray Italian suit. The crystal cup shattered across the marble floor. Silence. Complete silence. Emma froze. Her face turned white. The security guards immediately reached for their weapons. The maid stopped breathing. One whispered, "She's dead." Emma slowly looked up. Standing in front of her was Alessandro De Luca. Coffee dripped from his custom-made suit. His white shirt was stained. His expensive tie ruined. Emma couldn't breathe. I'm so sorry. It was an accident. Her voice shook uncontrollably. I'll pay for the cleaning. Nobody spoke. One guard quietly muttered, "That suit costs more than her annual salary." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She had ruined everything. Before her first day had even ended, she lowered her head. "I'm sorry." Still, no answer. Instead, Alessandro stepped closer. Emma expected shouting, termination, humiliation. Instead, he gently reached for her hand. She flinched, not because she feared him, because the coffee had burned her skin. Alessandro immediately noticed the fresh red mark across her fingers. His expression changed instantly. "You're burned." Emma blinked. "What?" "The coffee." He carefully turned her hand over. The skin had already begun turning red. "You need a doctor." Emma stared at him, confused. "I ruined your suit." Alessandro never even looked down at the stain. His eyes remained fixed on her injured hand. "You can replace a suit." His voice stayed calm. "You can't replace a person." The entire hallway fell silent. Even Marco looked surprised, because every employee inside the mansion knew one thing. Alessandro De Luca never touched strangers. Ever. Yet here, he was, holding the trembling hand of a clumsy nanny as though nothing else in the world mattered. Emma slowly looked into his eyes. For the first time, she didn't see a ruthless mafia boss. She saw a man carrying a loneliness almost as heavy as her own. Neither of them realized it yet, but someone else was watching from the security cameras. A beautiful international supermodel named Bianca Romano. The woman who had spent 2 years trying to become Mrs. De Luca. As she watched Alessandro gently holding another woman's hand, her smile disappeared. Then she whispered one cold sentence. "If I can't have Alessandro, that nanny won't live long enough to steal him." The news spread through the De Luca estate in less than 10 minutes. Not because Alessandro had yelled, not because someone had been fired, but because he hadn't. Every maid whispered about it. The chef stopped cooking just long enough to gossip. Even the armed security guards exchanged confused glances. The boss held her hand. "I've worked here 9 years. I've never seen him touch anyone. Not even Bianca." No. Especially not Bianca. Emma had no idea people were talking about her. She sat quietly inside the mansion's private medical room while the estate doctor carefully applied ointment to the small burn on her hand. "It isn't serious," the elderly doctor said with a smile. "You'll be fine in 2 or 3 days." Emma sighed in relief. "Thank you." The doctor chuckled. "You know." She looked up. "I've worked for the DeLuca family for almost 20 years. Emma listened politely. "I've never seen Mr. DeLuca personally bring someone here." Emma blinked. "He brought me." The doctor nodded. "He practically ordered everyone to move." Emma lowered her eyes. She couldn't understand why. She had only spilled coffee. Meanwhile, Alessandro stood alone inside his office. The ruined gray suit had already been replaced by another perfectly tailored black one. Marco entered carrying several folders. "The London investors are waiting." Alessandro didn't answer. Marco frowned. "The Milan shipment has arrived." Still nothing. Finally Marco closed the folder. "Sir." Alessandro looked toward the rain outside. "What do you think of the new nanny?" Marco nearly smiled. "That's the first time you've ever asked my opinion about an employee." Silence. Then Marco answered honestly. "She doesn't seem interested in your money." Alessandro looked back at him. "Most people spend their first day trying to impress me." A faint smile appeared. "She spent hers apologizing for ruining a suit." Marco laughed quietly. "And worrying about paying for it." The smile disappeared from Alessandro's face. "Exactly." Upstairs, Emma was helping Lily build a castle out of colorful wooden blocks. "This one is the Princess Tower." Lily pointed proudly. "And this?" Emma asked. "The dragon." Emma looked at the tiny pink dragon. "He's adorable." "He isn't adorable," Lily giggled. "He's scary." Emma gasped dramatically. "I've offended the dragon." Lily burst into laughter again. For the second time that day, the mansion echoed with genuine happiness. Emma didn't notice someone standing outside. Alessandro. Again. He should have been in a meeting. Instead, he quietly watched his daughter smile. The same daughter who had barely spoken to anyone for almost 2 years. His chest tightened. Not from love. From guilt. After his wife's death, he had buried himself in work, meetings, business, wars, revenge, everything except being a father. And somehow, this clumsy young woman had accomplished in one afternoon what therapists and expensive nannies couldn't do in years. That evening, Emma wandered into the enormous kitchen looking for tea. The mansion felt strangely empty at night. One chef looked up. "You shouldn't be here." Emma immediately apologized. "I'm sorry. I couldn't sleep." The old chef smiled kindly. "You remind me of someone." Emma looked curious. "Who?" "Mrs. DeLuca." Emma frowned. "I've heard everyone mention her." The chef's smile faded. "She was the only person who could make Mr. DeLuca laugh." Silence. "After she died." He slowly shook his head. He stopped smiling. Emma looked toward the dark hallway. Somehow, that made her sad. Not because he was rich. Not because he was powerful. Because loneliness looked the same on everyone. The next morning, a black Rolls-Royce stopped outside the mansion. Out stepped Bianca Romano. Tall. Elegant. Perfect blonde hair. Designer dress worth more than most people's annual salary. Diamond earrings sparkled beneath the morning sun. She smiled confidently. Every employee recognized her immediately. For nearly 2 years, she had been trying to marry Alessandro. Everyone assumed it would eventually happen. Except Alessandro. Bianca walked into the mansion as though she already owned it. "Where's Alessandro?" Sophia answered politely. "He's having breakfast with Miss Lily." Bianca smiled. "I'll join them." Inside the dining room, Emma sat beside Lily, helping her cut pancakes into funny animal shapes. A bunny. A bear. A turtle. Lily laughed so hard milk almost came out of her nose. Across the table, Alessandro quietly drank his coffee. Not speaking. Simply watching. For the first time in years, breakfast felt like a family meal. Then, the doors opened. Bianca walked in. Her smile froze. She stared at the table. Then, at Emma. Then back at Alessandro. "You never eat breakfast with anyone." Alessandro calmly placed his coffee cup down. "I'm eating with my daughter." Bianca forced another smile. And her nanny. Emma immediately stood. I'll leave. Before she could move, Lily grabbed her hand. No. Emma looked down. I want you here. Bianca's jaw tightened. She had spent 2 years trying to earn Lily's affection. The child barely tolerated her. Yet this stranger had won her heart overnight. Breakfast ended awkwardly. As Emma walked through the hallway, Bianca followed. Emma. She turned politely. Yes. Bianca smiled. Beautiful. Cold. You seem sweet. Thank you. But girls like you usually misunderstand men like Alessandro. Emma looked confused. I don't understand. Bianca stepped closer. You think he's kind because he held your hand yesterday. Emma said nothing. You're just another employee. Another pause. He'll forget your name in a week. Emma lowered her eyes. I never expected anything else. Bianca searched her face. No jealousy. No greed. No ambition. Only honesty. So, that irritated her even more. Later that afternoon, Lily insisted on visiting the mansion gardens. Emma happily agreed. The estate covered almost 50 acres. Rose gardens, fountains, private lakes, ancient oak trees. Everything looked magical. Lily chased butterflies across the grass. Emma laughed. Slow down. Suddenly, a frightened scream shattered the peaceful afternoon. Emma spun around. Lily had wandered too close to the private horse paddock. One frightened stallion had broken loose. The massive black horse charged directly toward the little girl. Lily. Emma didn't hesitate. She ran, throwing herself between the horse and the child. She pushed Lily aside just as the terrified animal slammed into her. Emma hit the ground hard. Pain exploded through her shoulder. The world blurred. Voices shouted. Guards rushed forward. The horse was finally restrained. Lily cried uncontrollably. Emma. Alessandro appeared only seconds later. His face had completely changed. For the first time, every employee saw genuine fear in the ruthless Mafia boss's eyes. He dropped his knees beside Emma. Blood trickled from a cut above her eyebrow. Her breathing was weak. Alessandro gently lifted her into his arms. Call the helicopter. Marco looked stunned. Sir, the hospital is only 15 minutes away. I said. Alessandro's voice became dangerously quiet. Call the helicopter. No one argued. As Emma drifted in and out of consciousness, she felt someone holding her hand tightly. She struggled to open her eyes. The last thing she saw was Alessandro's face, and something she'd never expected to see in the eyes of the most feared man in New York. Pure panic. From the balcony above, Bianca watched the entire scene. Her fingernails dug into her palms. She finally understood the truth. This wasn't sympathy anymore. The ruthless Mafia boss was beginning to fall in love. And Bianca had already decided, if Emma survived, she wouldn't survive for long. The helicopter landed on the roof of St. Vincent Medical Center just 6 minutes later. Doctors and nurses rushed toward the aircraft the moment the doors opened. Emma drifted in and out of consciousness. Everything sounded distant, blurred. Someone called her name. Someone held her hand. Then, darkness. Alessandro stood outside the emergency operating room without moving. His expensive black suit was stained with Emma's blood. Marco had never seen his boss like this. Not after shootings. Not after wars. Not even after losing millions in business. But one injured nanny had shaken the most feared Mafia boss in New York. Marco approached carefully. The doctors say she'll be okay. Alessandro didn't answer. They're stitching the wound above her eyebrow. Silence. No broken bones. Nothing. Finally Marco sighed. You blame yourself. Alessandro looked through the hospital window. I should have closed the paddock. It wasn't your fault. I built that estate. His voice was low. Everything inside it is my responsibility. Marco knew better than to argue. Across the hallway, Bianca Romano watched everything, hidden behind dark sunglasses. She had followed the helicopter in her own luxury car. She wasn't worried about Emma. She wanted confirmation, and she got it. She watched Alessandro refuse every business call, ignore every executive, cancel every meeting, remain outside Emma's hospital room for hours. Bianca smiled bitterly. So it's true. She whispered, "You're choosing her." Jealousy burned inside her chest. For 2 years she had attended every charity gala, every business dinner, every family event. She wore designer gowns, perfect makeup, perfect smiles, perfect manners. Nothing worked. Then this ordinary nanny appeared. Within 2 days, Alessandro was sleeping outside her hospital room. Bianca's pride couldn't accept it. Late that evening, the doctor finally walked outside. "Mr. De Luca?" Alessandro immediately stood. "She's awake." Relief washed across his face. "So, can I see her?" The doctor smiled. "Only 5 minutes." Emma slowly opened her eyes. The room smelled like medicine. Machines beeped softly around her. Her shoulder ached. Her head hurt. She blinked several times. Then she noticed someone sitting quietly beside her bed. Alessandro, still wearing the same black suit, still covered in dried blood. He looked exhausted. She tried to sit up. He immediately stood. "Don't. I'm okay." "No." His voice softened. "You're pretending." Emma laughed weakly. "You noticed." "I notice everything." Their eyes met. Neither spoke. Finally Emma whispered, "Is Lily okay?" Alessandro smiled. A real smile. Small, but genuine. "She refuses to leave until you come home." Emma closed her eyes in relief. "Good." A long silence followed. Then Alessandro asked quietly, "Why did you do it?" Emma frowned. "What?" "You threw yourself in front of that horse." She looked confused. "It was Lily." "As if that explains it." Emma looked at him for several seconds, then smiled gently. "My mother used to tell me something." "What?" "If you're strong enough to protect someone, you don't wait for permission. You just protect them." Alessandro stared at her. Nobody had ever answered him like that. Not with ambition. Not with fear. Simply, kindness. 3 days later, Emma returned to the De Luca estate. She expected life to return to normal. Instead, everything had changed. Every employee smiled at her. The maids greeted her warmly. The chefs prepared her favorite breakfast. The gardeners waved. Even the security guards treated her with quiet respect. Emma looked confused. What happened? One elderly maid laughed. "You saved Miss Lily." Another smiled. "You became family." Emma quickly shook her head. "No, I'm just the nanny." The maids exchanged knowing looks. They didn't argue. But upstairs, someone else had different plans. Bianca stormed into Alessandro's office without knocking. He didn't even look up. "We need to talk." "I'm working." "No." She slammed a magazine onto his desk. "We're talking." Alessandro slowly lifted his eyes. Bianca crossed her arms. "The entire city thinks we're getting married." He returned to reading. "They're wrong." Her face hardened. "You embarrass me." "I never made promises." "You let everyone believe." "I let you believe." Silence. Bianca's voice became colder. "You're throwing away everything." "For a nanny." Alessandro calmly closed the file in front of him, then looked directly into her eyes. "No. I'm protecting someone who deserves it." Those words shattered whatever hope Bianca still had. She laughed bitterly. "You actually care about her." He said nothing. His silence confirmed everything. Bianca turned toward the door. Before leaving, she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was dangerous. "If I can't have you, she won't either." The door slammed shut. That same night, Emma couldn't sleep. She walked quietly through the mansion gardens. The moon reflected across the private lake. Everything felt peaceful, until she heard footsteps. She turned. Alessandro stood a few feet away. Neither of them spoke. Finally, he walked closer. "I owe you an apology." Emma blinked. "For what?" "For putting you in danger." She smiled softly. "You didn't. I brought you into my world." She shook her head. "I accepted the job." Another silence. Then Alessandro surprised her. When Lily smiled, He looked toward the lake. It felt like my wife came home for just 1 second. Emma's heart ached. Not because he mentioned his wife. Because she saw the pain behind his eyes. You still love her? He nodded. Every day. Emma smiled sadly. That doesn't make you weak. He looked at her. It makes you human. For the first time in years, someone understood him. Not because of his money. Not because of his power. But because of his grief. Neither of them noticed. Someone hiding behind the trees. A man holding a camera with a powerful zoom lens. He quietly took several photographs. Alessandro, standing close to Emma, looking into her eyes. The photographer smiled. He immediately sent the pictures to an unknown number. Within seconds, a reply appeared. Unknown contact. Good. Tomorrow night. Kill the nanny. The photographer slowly lowered his phone, watching Emma laugh softly at something Alessandro had just said. Neither of them had any idea that before sunrise, every assassin in New York would know her face. Silence. Bianca's voice became colder. You're throwing away everything. For a nanny. Alessandro calmly closed the file in front of him, then looked directly into her eyes. No. I'm protecting someone who deserves it. Those words shattered whatever hope Bianca still had. She laughed bitterly. You actually care about her? He said nothing. His silence confirmed everything. Bianca turned toward the door. Before leaving, she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was dangerous. If I can't have you, she won't either. The door slammed shut. That same night, Emma couldn't sleep. She walked quietly through the mansion gardens. The moon reflected across the private lake. Everything felt peaceful, until she heard footsteps. She turned. Alessandro stood a few feet away. Neither of them spoke. Finally, he walked closer. I owe you an apology. Emma blinked. For what? For putting you in danger. She smiled softly. You didn't. I brought you into my world. She shook her head. I accepted the job. Another silence. Then Alessandro surprised her. When Lily smiled, he looked toward the lake. It felt like my wife came home for just 1 second. Emma's heart ached. Not because he mentioned his wife. Because she saw the pain behind his eyes. You still love her? He nodded. Every day. Emma smiled sadly. That doesn't make you weak. He looked at her. It makes you human. For the first time in years, someone understood him. Not because of his money. Not because of his power. But because of his grief. Neither of them noticed. Someone hiding behind the trees. A man holding a camera with a powerful zoom lens. He quietly took several photographs. Alessandro, standing close to Emma, looking into her eyes. The photographer smiled. He immediately sent the pictures to an unknown number. Within seconds, a reply appeared. Unknown contact. Good. Tomorrow night. Kill the nanny. The photographer slowly lowered his phone, watching Emma laugh softly at something Alessandro had just said. Neither of them had any idea that before sunrise, every assassin in New York would know her face.